Great. So welcome to another River Publishers book discussion. My name is Philippa Jefferies, and today I have with me Martin Pott, interior architect and researcher, and author of the book Home in a Hybrid World, which examines the very definition of home, how we design, provide and build our housing, and the effect that bringing new technology into our most intimate spaces can have. Martin, thank you for joining me today.
Welcome.
Thank you. Do you want to start with just a little bit about yourself and what prompted you to write this book?
Yeah, sure. Originally, a long time ago, of course, I started as a furniture designer. Later proceeded to the Academy of Arts in Rotterdam, interior architecture, spatial design. And that was more or less the same time that the whole development, if you'd call it like that, on say smart homes, home technologies, etc., started to emerge. And I had some contacts then already, of course, within the sector with fellow interior architects, etc. And we started to question what is, if you think ahead of what the implications might be, could be, or even should be, on the profession as an interior architect, but also an architect. The difference is slightly academic to me. Is there any discussion? Is there any thinking about how to rethink this problem with regard to your profession? And it ended more or less that there was hardly any discussion. It was seen at that time, especially, it was seen as let's say a comfort issue. How can we automate previous manual actions to control the lights, the garage door, you name it. But at that time, especially, there was hardly any, shall I say, any incorporation in technology concerning building. And the whole digitalization was far from what it is now. So I started thinking about what it could be and what it should be. A long time ago, no, about 5 years ago, I decided to do a PhD on that subject, more or less roughly the same research question as what is now formulated in the book. So I did a period at the Erasmus University in Rotterdam. Successfully started to look for a guiding professor. But to make a long story very short, we didn't succeed. Nobody was really interested or wanted me to point it more directly to a specific research question. What I thought was not the adequate answer or option for me anyway, because at that same time I was 67, I think. So a shining scientific career wasn't ahead. So until one of the professors who really wanted to guide me said, given your experience and your daily experience, I had a lot of contacts and work and research within the European Commission and various gremia. And he started skip the whole idea of your PhD and write a book about it. So that was more or less the real driver for which I'm still grateful to him, and he's the one who wrote the preface to the book. So so that's more or less when I started. I had to think about it, of course, but that's about it. So then the focus for me was especially the whole discussion on housing and in relation to technology and in particular architecture.
Okay, and then I guess just to start off with, what is home to you? And I was wondering if your kind of definition of home had changed throughout your period of researching and writing this book.
No, not really. I mean, if you look if you do some research about the concept of home, there's first a mix-up, and that's also depending on language, by the way. There's also a mix-up of what is a house and what is a home. I believe, and I'm not the only one, that a house is the prerequisite for a home. You can have a house, but it doesn't mean you have a home. Second, if you focus, the book focuses on, of course, the situation in the Netherlands, because you have to start somewhere. You can't discuss the whole problem worldwide in one book. So that's also the situation that I'm familiar with. So if you look in the Netherlands, there's a whole discussion about we have to build a lot of housing, about 300,000, if I'm correct, at the moment. But that's a discussion about quantities. That's not a discussion about qualities. That's not a discussion about ontology. It's not a discussion on what do you think believe a house is. And also because I refer in the book to Floridi's principle of what he calls the infosphere. We live since about 5 years or so in a situation where we cannot, very difficultly, can withdraw from a society which increasingly becomes a mix of the real and the virtual, of the digital and the analog, etc., etc., and that has an influence on the way we build our housing. And the discussion, in particular in the Netherlands, because as I said, that's the situation I know best, is that there's a discussion about quantities. Virtually nobody asks, what is the consequence for what I just described as infosphere, for the way that we experience our homes, and therefore build, as in architecture, build the prerequisites for that. Yeah. That's a far more important discussion than just build houses.
Yeah, sure, exactly. I think it's in a few countries there's that problem of just trying to hit a number of houses that you build and not thinking about how or why. So kind of building on a little bit on what you were saying, in the book you talk a bit about a sort of digital invasion of the home. So we've been getting more and more different new technologies kind of integrated into our house. I was wondering what your thoughts are on the future of all the smart tech we're introducing into our homes. For example, a lot of people have an Amazon Alexa, or there's the Google Home and so on.
Yeah, well, first of all, let me emphasize that I'm not a Luddite. I mean, I have nothing against technologies or whatever. I'm a great fan of technology. But then again, it has to be an answer to a question that is known, that is discussed. And to my experience, a lot of technology within the home environment, stick to that, is wrong answer to a question nobody knows. It's still looking for a question behind the answer, and that said, a lot of stuff like home automation, like in particular the two examples that you mentioned, do have a problem. I'm sorry, do have a problem with privacy issues.
Yeah, sure.
Especially Google stuff, Amazon stuff, a lot of other stuff. There's plenty of examples of Google Home registering your talks in the house. The smart TV that is recording the talks that you have on the couch. The smart vacuum cleaner that is mapping your house while doing. So, did anybody ever ask for technologies like that? I don't think so. So to me, technology should first of all be controlled by the inhabitant, and second, should serve. It should serve a goal, and we should be very careful about protecting what is still a private space. Yeah, you can have a discussion about what your private space is, but there's only two options. Either you think, or you keep thinking that it's a private space and you protect it as such, or you think different with the help of technology and digitalization, etc., etc., or you think different on how to design and shape that environment. And I'm a firm believer of the latter.
Okay. Do you think perhaps houses of the future then will be designed to kind of accommodate a less private space with all this new technology.
Privacy is some sort of container term. There is spatial privacy, there is relational privacy, there is a lot of other stuff. So if we believe that at the moment, in the Netherlands anyway, let's stick to that, my private space is legally my private space. I cannot, nobody else can enter there as long as he's not invited. So at the same time, given the whole infosphere as referred to, there is hardly any private space anymore. So you can, as I said, you can protect it, or you should rethink what that privacy or private space is. But then again, you have to make sure that there is some kind of private space to from which you leave to act in public space.
Okay, and kind of moving on from that, with obviously the global COVID pandemic at the moment, many of us are being forced now to work at home and use our homes slightly differently. I was wondering what your thoughts are about how this has disrupted the way we use and see our homes at the moment.
Yeah, well, first of all, what we do in the Netherlands, again, is, and I think in a lot of countries worldwide, is that we build houses. We don't facilitate dwelling. So, and the situation now where a lot of people are more or less forced to work in their private space illustrates the fact that these spaces are in fact not suited or designed, let alone suited, to accommodate that. And the more that you have far more flexibility in your house, in everything that determines your private space, to adapt that to changing circumstances, to changing households, to changing lifestyles, to changing ages, etc., etc. You really have to build in a different way. There's the principle, what I discuss in the book, is about open building, and the principle is design a split between what is support and what is infill. The moment that you create a support, which is a large scale, which is architecturally sound, which is protective against the elements, etc., etc., and that's about it. What happens inside should be flexible. It can be adapted according to changing needs.
Yeah, exactly, because people have been working in their kitchens, they've been working in corners. I've had that problem at the beginning, was trying to kind of hot seat around the house, trying to find places to work. Could you kind of finish by talking a little bit more about how you'd like to see the future of how we design and build our houses and homes from now on, I guess specifically in the Netherlands?
Well, first, there is, of course, the existing situation is that we have a lot of existing housing. A lot of housing is what's being added each year is only a minor percentage of what's already there, and what's already there has to be adapted according to principles for the Paris agreements, you name it, all kinds of demands concerning sustainability.
Yeah.
And that's where the real problem is. If you can start from scratch, like say tomorrow, you can do other things than you can do with the whole existing supply of housing. So the existing supply is the problem. If I would be in favor of at least creating sample projects, which on a large scale, which can really illustrate from the start how things can be done different. And that needs a change in the whole chain of building, which is now more or less impenetrable, is maybe too fierce, but it's still quite difficult now to change the whole chain that's building in the Netherlands for a better result. But then again, given the whole situation for the coming decades at least, I guess we'll need all the innovation force and imaginative forces we have to rethink and think new solutions.
Okay, thank you. I think it's quite nice to end it there. So thank you very much for joining me today, Martin. It's been very interesting.
Same, likewise.